Welcome to the Queer Witch Project, your resource for all things queer and witchy. I am Damona Peacock, a fabulous, non-binary, neurospicy, ordained queerdo with a fascination for all things cycles, symbolism, and patterns.
And I'm Moonkittee, your queer femme, poly kitchen witch, and proud geek. Today's topic, and hopefully, possibly, the last in our currently running tarot series, queer tarot decks and spreads. I promise after this, you guys will get a little bit of a breather, but along
Part
those
six.
lines,
Part six of four.
exactly. Part six of four out of this. But no, we really just kind of were talking about it and thinking about the process. And along with decks come other than the other questions we get often is how do you get it? How do they work? So we thought it'd be fun to put together and kind of revisit a little bit and touch on some of a little bit of a past episode on what queer decks we found, but also other ones and all that kind of stuff. So here we go.
Can you tell that we have a what do they call it? Hyper focus here.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, but it's a topic that we love to talk about. So, and we always still find, as I like to say, the rabbit hole always goes deeper.
Always, always,
So,
always.
well, then let's start with one of the questions that I see a lot, especially from people who want to get into it or newbies, new practitioners, and that is, how do you acquire your first deck? Because there's a mythology. I bring this up because there's like this mythology out there that you shouldn't buy your first deck. You should have it gifted to you. It should be something that somebody gives you or gifts to you. What are your take on how to acquire a first deck, and does it need to be gifted?
I can gift it to myself.
I like your answer.
For that reason, because again, if you are just starting out, say you're 13, 14, 15, as many of us were, and you're in a conservative place or come from a very conservative family and no one you know is around that, you're not going to have anyone gifting you a deck. That was my experience, and I'm sure it was probably similar to yours. And I know several people that you're not necessarily going to have someone said, "Hey, here's a random stranger out of the blue. Here's a tarot deck that you never knew you needed."
You say that, but I have given away so many decks. It's not even funny. I have given people their first decks. I have rehomed a few decks like they were kittens that needed their new
Mhm.
forever home. I have gifted because I love gifting decks. Like, hey,
Yes,
this one made me think of you. This is perfect. But it doesn't have to be that way. Yeah.
right. And I'm not saying that I haven't, because I have done that too.
Right?
But I tend to compare it to when you're in high school and as everyone says, saying no to drugs, you get this whole idea that people are going to be walking up to you every single day and offering you drugs.
Yeah, that didn't happen.
It's like with tarot decks. It doesn't happen. Now, as you get into the community, and I bet with you gifting two decks to other people, it's because you know they have an interest or they've expressed an interest or there's something about that you know that would be welcome and receptive. So
100%.
you can
Or
absolutely
like,
gift decks, and I have also been gifted decks, and I have gifted decks to others for
right.
reasons. But in the absence of someone giving you a deck, you can absolutely gift yourself a
Yep.
deck.
So then how? How do you find a deck?
For me, it's always what draws me to it. The first one I got that I remember buying was a Dragon Tarot because Dragon is and always has been my archetype and my protector since I was knee-high to a grasshopper. So it's one of those things that Dragon's always been around. So my first tarot deck was a Dragon deck. I've told the story in the past is I got it. I was looking at it going, this is cool. I really like the stuff, but I couldn't read it. I couldn't feel for it. It didn't get to me and I couldn't resonate with it. Partly because I was in the closet at the time, the broom closet, for a number of reasons, and it wouldn't let me. Dragon is very picky in that it will not let you read if you're not willing to acknowledge what you're reading. So I ended up trading that deck in at a divination hospitality deck swap for another deck that I got, which is another great way to do it if you can find them. A deck swap, and then I got put in a raffle prize to win a few other decks. So I ended up getting like several decks and getting a new deck out of it that I did use quite often and still use quite often. Long story short, that dragon deck came back around to me and was gifted to me by someone else about 2 or 3 years later. So the dragon, I love that I'd given it away and it found its way back to say, now you are ready for this. It's not an expensive deck. It's one of those very cheap basic, like find
Hmm.
in a Spencer's kind of deck thing. I find it really funny that it found its way back to me eventually. But yeah, it's what you like. So for me, Dragon was the first deck. I came across the imagery in college from one class that was talking about the RWS tarot in a creative art and mythology class. And I didn't like the imagery of the RWS. So I kind of stayed away from it because it was
Hmm.
just too, it's too formal and too close to my Catholic upbringings and everything else. So when I started, but I've found like the Big Eyes Tarot, and then I found other cute things, and it's just stuff that drew me in to the point where I have a ridiculous tarot collection because I love the artwork. So for me,
Yeah.
how do I know what deck will work for me? I'm drawn by the art of what does the deck show, what does the artwork show, and sometimes I know I'll get a deck and it's meant to be passed on to someone else. Also had that happen several times.
Yeah.
How about you?
Or I'll get a deck with someone in particular in mind. Like, oh, this one's definitely reads as this person's flavor
Hmm.
or whatever. Whatever interests me or is something that I know I could hyperfixate on for a while.
Hmm.
And sometimes so it just depends on, so I have some favorite ways of procuring decks.
Hmm.
One is to check out metaphysical stores.
Hmm.
Check out your local witch shops. There's, not every community has them, but a lot of bigger cities will have multiple, and smaller communities may have a few scattered here and there. So just start looking into what kind of, metaphysical shops that are around, because they're usually going to have a good bookshelf or two or three or a wall or a
Hmm.
room of decks. And kudos to those who have shops that have demo decks out. That's
Yes.
always my favorite. I
Hmm.
like getting my hands on there. I like moving through, feeling the quality, moving through the artwork, and just seeing if it moves me, if it connects with me, if I'm like, I can really read from this, or it could be like, oh, this is nice, but it's not my thing.
Hmm.
So I very much love getting my hands on
Hmm.
something. Short of that, I think my second favorite way to have acquired decks is through Kickstarter, because
Yeah.
right, yes,
That's
it's an addiction.
that was once
Yeah.
it has become a huge addiction, and I have backed so many decks through
What I
Kickstarter.
love about it is that a really good creator will keep you updated in the
Hmm.
entire process. I have fallen in love with decks because I fallen in love with the creator and the disclosure of the process of their creation, of their, these all these little updates you get, the little tidbits of, like, you feel like you're in it with them and that you're
Hmm.
really supporting an artist, like an
Yes.
individual, not like a company, not like a famous big name pagan figurehead. You're actually like a human, a real person.
Hmm.
I love Kickstarter for that.
Yeah, I do. I have backed way too many Kickstarter tarot decks. It goes back to the idea of being a patron of the arts and supporting someone who's creating and putting their heart and soul into something. So what it oftentimes means is some of the decks and some of the stuff coming up, I've listed our Kickstarter decks that are harder to find. It also
Yep.
means they're more expensive
Yep.
with it because you're
And you
paying for
get,
art and creativity and all that kind of stuff. And I know not
and
everyone has that
sometimes bells and
accessibility,
whistles.
but there's something to be said too. I try not to knock some of the mass produced stuff as well. Like, I absolutely love there's a series of, I can't remember which publisher, but they do like pop culture decks. So I've got Labyrinth deck, I've got a Disney Villains, I've got an Alice in Wonderland, I've got a
I have
Nightmare
the
Before
the
Christmas.
I have
All
the
those,
last unicorn.
yeah, Last
Love
Unicorn,
that one.
all those kinds of things. So those are more pop, mass manufactured kinds of decks. They're meant to be consumed on something easy. They're not the highest quality, but you're not
Yeah.
paying for the highest quality. Oftentimes they're $15 to $20. So they're much more realistical and accessible, but that doesn't
However,
necessarily mean that what they are is bad. It's still going to give you the messages if you connect to it and you cleanse it right and all that kind of stuff.
I do have a side rant on that
Okay.
though, since
Yes.
you brought that up.
Hmm.
Temu decks, or
Oh,
the Temu
yeah.
Okay, there are people out there who are ripping off other people's intellectual property,
Yes.
making cheaper versions of their artwork, their deck, spin-offs, like
Hmm.
copycats, but like on cheap paper without the books. And look, if you have bought a Temu discount deck that is not the high quality that you would get from directly from the publisher or directly from the creator or directly from the Kickstarter, and then you decide to contact the creator and be like, "Hey, why didn't your deck come with a book? Or would you send me a book?" Like, no, they're not effing going to do that. Like, you have bought a discount spin-off deck that they have not at all been paid for. And so there is something about ethical. If you do really love a creator, make sure you're getting it from the source. Make sure you're getting the actual quality that they have intended to put out into the world, because there is this whole side business of ripping off other people's intellectual property that is, I get a little ranty about. It's very
Hmm.
disappointing. I hate seeing it. One of my most favorite deck creators that I will talk about later has had that happen to her decks, and she's had people contacting her saying, "Can I get the book?" And like, no, you didn't buy my cards. You
Hmm.
bought somebody stealing my cards and giving a really bad quality product out there, pretending to be me, and you have to buy the real thing to get the real thing.
And if you bought one by accident thinking you were buying the real thing and you realize it doesn't have something like that, go out and get the real thing. If
And
you're
educate
truly being
people.
ethical about that, because again, ooh, cheap, easy decks. Ooh, this is accessible. This is great. And okay, if it's the only thing that you can afford, don't expect much. When you have the ability,
Yeah,
make sure to give that service back in
yeah.
the form of buying the product for from the person who actually needed and created it so that they get that royalty, they get the money and they get the funding for their works. I think it's incredibly important to do that.
I agree. So yeah, try to do as much research as you can and ethically purchase. And like, look, if you're sometimes you get what you pay for.
Hmm.
So if all you can afford is a $5, the deck swap idea, if you can't find a deck swap, create a deck swap.
Hmm.
Make a group on some kind of social media, advertise, make an event, advertise it around. And what is a deck swap? It's where everybody brings decks that they're kind of they've acquired through one way, shape, or form, which has happened to me many times. I have been given decks or I have acquired a deck, bought it thinking I would want it, and
Hmm.
then I just never use it and it sits unused because I never connected with it. And I'm like, okay, this one needs to live a better life somewhere else because it would
Hmm.
be used better by someone who actually connects with it. A lot of people who like us like to collect decks tend to have decks that just kind of sit around unused. Get a whole bunch of people together, bringing decks that they're willing to give away, and in turn, you have a pod of decks that people don't personally, the ones that they brought, they
Hmm.
don't want, but they can get. You can exchange it for something somebody else brought. And that's a
Hmm.
really cool way, access to a variety of things that you wouldn't normally buy for yourself. There's so many different ways you can acquire a deck.
Hmm. Yeah, there really are.
Sometimes they find you, like
Yeah,
pets, they pick you.
the deck distribution system. But yes, but ultimately, again, don't be afraid. If you like something and it calls out to you, get it if you have the ability to do so.
So, okay, you get a new deck. What do? How do you know that this deck's going to work with you?
Me, I question it. In my day job, I am a manager and I do a lot of hiring and I do a lot of interviewing and all that kind of stuff to see if I'm going to if the people are going to fit right with my management style and my work style, and I'm going to do the same damn thing to a tarot deck.
So you sit down with it and you actually give it an interview.
Hmm. I do. I have a series of 5 questions that I ask for the tarot, and I have a slightly different set of questions that I ask if it's an oracle deck because they read, as we talked about before, slightly differently. So I have that kind of thing that I will do for that. How do you know if something works for you?
Well, I get when I'm reading with it, people get excited about the messages that they get from it.
Mm-hmm.
Or like affirmation little pings that is like, oh, that was so spot on, or that's what they needed to hear. For me, I know through working with it. And if I acquire a new deck and I use it a couple of times and then I just never end up picking it up again, I know that I just didn't bond with it. And sometimes
Mm-hmm.
I love it enough to keep it and bond with it later. And sometimes that does happen. I get burnt out on one deck. Back in the day, I chose one deck to learn and I only learned with that and only ever used that one deck for like a decade, pun intended, right?
Mm-hmm.
Decade. And then I just, variety is a spice of life. I just started opening up and learning, to have multiple friends and multiple decks. And sometimes they just kind of come back to me. Sometimes they're old favorites, and sometimes I just don't ever really feel drawn to a deck. And that's usually just the proof is in the pudding, I guess, for me.
Hmm.
I have to use them. If a deck is spouting things that I can't make sense of, I
Hmm.
just won't bond. I just don't bond with it. Or on the opposite, if a deck it just succinctly hits perfect on, like, it just really affirms like that I'm in the right place at the right time with the right people saying the right things that need to be heard. There's just a sense of a feeling that I can get, and I'm just like, God, this is the deck for me.
Hmm.
And then they tend to be my go-tos.
I want to touch on something with this. It's kind of out of left field, but it's also kind of highly important. And I think it's really important to talk about when we're talking about doing reading decks and reading spreads. And before we go into some of the decks itself, let's talk about consent in readings.
Yeah.
Because that's one of those things that when you've just got your first deck, you're really excited about it. You want to do the reading, you're practicing your reading for others, you want to know what's going on. There's a line that you have to kind of acknowledge and be aware of when you're talking and dealing with reading tarot or oracle decks, and that is consent in what you're reading and who you're reading it for.
Yep. First of all, as a practitioner on the social medias, I will not and do not think that other readers, like genuine, authentic readers, aren't out there messaging you in your private messages saying, Hey, I've got a message for you. That's a scammer. They're pretending to be your favorite reader on TikTok. That's not real. Don't, if
Hmm.
a reader is saying, I just downloaded a message for you and sending you, that's probably, no, it's not legit. Now, if you are coming to a reader saying, I want a reading, that's different.
Hmm.
But you're consenting into the reading. Along those lines, if you're saying, I want a reading on my boyfriend, I want to know if he's cheating on me, I can't read your boyfriend because your boyfriend's not asking me for a reading. I can read for you what your connection is with this person. I can give you a relationship reading based on your connection to this person and your consent for a reading to get a perspective on what can be seen there. But I cannot read your boyfriend. I cannot do a reading for your your girlfriend, your spouse, your partner, your child, your grandparents. I cannot do that without their permission.
Hmm.
That's just unethical, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You
Does this
know,
person like me? I
go
I
pick some
can't read that.
flowers. They like me, they like me not, they like me.
Yeah.
I do love, so if I'm going to do like a couple spread,
Hmm.
there are spreads that I like to use. You can have both couples, both parties in the couple or throuple or whatever, all in on a reading, consenting to a reading.
Hmm.
Or you can get love readings done for just yourself, but you have to remember you're not reading the other person. You're reading having your relationship through you read, and you can read how, what is my love like for this person? What is our relationship going to be like? But it's always through the lens of the person that is consenting to the reading, and that's
Hmm.
very, I feel like, very important. The other thing, the way the tides kind of turn
Hmm.
is, I think the energy in the room will be read. So also like setting matters, and also so often what I'm readings, people come to me for a reading, and what I end up telling them so often will end up being also something I need to hear.
Hmm.
And you have to be able to discern how much is this something I need to hear, that is, am I reading my energy or am I reading their energy, or
Hmm.
are we both in similar places and that's why the universe brought us together, because I could relate to that and I can offer them, my experience and wisdom.
Hmm. Almost always get something out of the reading when I'm reading for others for something that I needed to hear in that reading. It's not always, but most of the time there's something in that, even if it's
There's
a
always a
wildly different
reason
question.
universe sent you to me kind of
Yeah,
feeling sometimes.
exactly.
Yeah.
But no,
Yeah.
same thing if you're trying to read the horoscope or read the cards of what's happening with your favorite celebrity or something else. They're not the ones consenting to the reading, so you're not going to get the imagery. You're not going to get
Accuracy.
accuracy, and it's honestly not ethical to do so.
Yeah, so make sure you know what you're consenting into. Know that people don't have a right, readers do not have a right to give you a message that you did not ask for.
Hmm.
And that's unethical in the sense that even if they have something valid to say because they've observed something in you, or whatever, it's not going to land well if you didn't consent to it.
Mhm. There is a fine line, I will say though, with sometimes when I'm scrolling through TikTok or something else, and again, if you're seeing this message is for you. Now you have the choice to whether you want to watch it and receive that message or opt out. And you can start watching it and it can
And if
resonate,
it's not for you,
or you can start watching going, no, no, this doesn't feel right, and scroll on. So that would be the only kind of gray area, because I have had messages that will say that, and I don't like that as a, because it's almost the same of like, hey, I'm reaching out to you to tell you a message. But at the same time, I
yeah,
also know of the idea of, like we've talked about the internet prophecy, and the idea of sometimes messages do come to you when you need to hear them and you need to seek them out. But there it's coming across in a way that it's like saying, hey, yes or
that's
no.
on you to keep it or not.
It's
And that
if you
also
are
brings
you
me
choosing to consent to this, yes or no. I'm not direct guiding it to you.
that brings me to another thing that I will often tell people who are new to getting readings, and that's take what resonates with you and leave the rest. If something
Mm-hmm.
doesn't sit right, you don't have to own that part of the reading. Maybe that part's for me, maybe that part's for somebody else in this cafe, or depending on where we're, whatever is going on around us. Take what you need to hear from it, what really sticks with you, what really resonates. That's for you. All the else, everything else could just be word salad and not have any big meaning. So it's like,
Mm-hmm.
really, what meaning can you derive from this reading that's coming up? And like we've said before, it doesn't usually tell you things you don't know. It affirms for you things that you probably already know, but have a hard time kind of absorbing.
Mm-hmm.
All right, well, should we talk about some of our favorite decks as
Yes.
queer Oracle practitioners?
So we were thinking, and we kind of both put together a top 10-ish list of our favorite decks. Some I know I can't speak to your decks, but for my decks, some of them I know are queer by queer artists. Some read queer, some are clear queer ally decks, and
Mhm.
some are just they're queer because they're read through the lens of my queerness and they resonate through me through the lens of that queerness. So, but I tried to kind of break mine down in that order, but just be aware that some of these may be by authors that are absolutely queer and unapologetically queer and are out, talk about that on their about page. And some may not necessarily mention it or not, but they have queer imagery or ally friendly imagery, and they have that open-mindedness to them. So,
The
good.
funny thing is, as somebody who has so many decks and has been doing this for a couple of decades, I couldn't come up with a list of ten decks because
It's hard.
I'm such an ADHD person that I'm in the now of it all. So I'm like, what do I work with now? I'm
Mm-hmm.
not thinking about like what I've worked with over all of this time, right? So it's like,
Mm-hmm.
what keeps calling to me? What are my favorites right now?
Mm-hmm.
So with that caveat, I will say that there's this deck that I have. Technically, it's called the Mary L. Tarot. It's special to me because it was given to me by my friend Raven Moon, who had passed away from cancer way too many years ago now. It's going to be like 8 or 9 years
Mm-hmm.
ago, but that number keeps getting bigger, and it's just so weird that it's been that long. But he was a beautiful, vibrant, sassy, peacocky gay man, pagan leader, compassionate, effervescent, energetic, sweet, caring. His personality has kind of, for me and my friends and
Mm-hmm.
people who knew him, it's kind of imposed itself on this deck, and we read it through the lens of him and his personality. And so we will go to, and specifically, and I know I've talked about this here before, it's because when he was dying, he wrote us a message that said, call upon me when I am on the other side. I will have more hands to help. So we use the Raven Moon deck. That's what I call it, even though it's the Mary L. Tarot. It's my Raven Moon deck, and we will talk to Raven Moon through it. Raven Moon will send us the sassiest gay man message, will read you for filth and be like, I see you up and down. This is what's going on. This is what you're dealing with, and I got you. But again, often never really usually gives us much we don't really already see or
Mm-hmm.
know. But so much affirmation and so much loving, like it's his energy 100% that comes through in that reading. And I
Mm-hmm.
don't know if it's just like my love and adoration and, connection with him that does
Mm-hmm.
that, or the community love that I feel came out of, knowing him and being a part of his social circle. That's probably my number one deck that I go to. If
Mm-hmm.
it's particular people who will just message me and be like, I need a message from Raven Moon, or can you ask Raven Moon this for me? Or that's one of my most favorite clientele are
Mm-hmm.
people who want messages from Raven Moon. So, and it's queer because it's coming from a queer spirit.
Hmm.
Queer Elder, really.
Hmm.
I know that there are other decks that I love because I have acquired them through Kickstarter because the creator was queer.
Hmm.
So I have a deck that I go to specifically for shadow readings, shadow type work, or new moon type vibes, and it's called the Under the Bed Tarot. And Lark Malachi, I want to say, is the name of the creator, very queer. We have some links in the notes for people who want to look for some of these decks that we talk about. But it's all black and white, and all of the cards are like little monsters that live under the bed, and they have little messages for you, and they have little vibes or little things about them, but they're just like this black and white deck that's like all these cute little monsters. And I just love how the author created their personalities and their little entries in the book. And it just really feels like a gentle, creative way to approach something that's, can be kind of the monsters under our bed or the monsters in our closet kind of thing. It's just such a cute approach. And I kickstarted that stuff and I do not regret it.
Hmm.
Another of my absolute favorite decks that I kickstarted was the Trash Panda Tarot, which is a deck of raccoons, and everybody loves it. I don't know with a certainty that the creator is queer, but I know that they're at least an ally. They're probably queer because when I kickstarted it, they came with stickers that had like rainbow pride flags and trans pride flags, and some of the cards in the deck have rainbows on it, and so definitely some of the raccoons are queer.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I'm just, look, raccoons. I mean, come on. Like, I am definitely a little chaos spirit. Like,
Hmm.
it's me, it's some of my friends. They're like, I have this little punk rock raccoon type connection with certain people that I'm like, you just know when it's the right time to pull out the raccoons, okay?
Hmm.
Just saying. So I think those are another one that I kickstarted was the Gentle Tarot, queer indigenous artist. It is sweet. It became when I first arrived, it became for months. It was like my go-to. It was my most favorite deck that I'd had in a long time because of the delivery, because the book was so gorgeous and so in depth, but also there was little parts of it like every card came with an affirmation and then a lot of deeper blurbs. And in the deeper blurbs there's questions, a lot of questions. And so if you want to give somebody a reading and like get them really interacting with it, asking them questions, you could. So there's just so much softness and gentleness, and just the artwork is just amazing. So Lark Malachi with the Under the Bed Tarot. Why am I blanking on the creator's name for the Gentle Tarot? I will
Mari
make
in the
sure that.
Sky, I know, is
Thank you.
her
Mari in the
Instagram.
Sky is her Instagram. Yeah, is their Instagram. So, and I'm pretty sure that they've been creating an Oracle deck as well,
Hmm.
which, and then my last tarot that I had one gifted to me called the Pride Tarot, a collaborative deck, and that was really cool. I didn't find like a specific creator to it or website for it, but it was gifted to me because they bought it in a shop, but you can Google it, and find it on like the Bezos site or other sellers online. What I think is really cool about it is it's all queer artists. It's a huge collaboration. Every card is a different person's artwork.
Hmm.
And so when you read the booklet that comes with it, it also will talk about who created it and why their description of their card. Every card is different, but it's all under the umbrella of from people who are, and it's got like queer imagery and queer
Hmm.
relationships on it and pride, a lot of empowerment. So I love it was a gift. It was a birthday gift last year. I love it. It's so cool. And it really fits under the whole like, that you can have a queer lens on something as traditional as the tarot.
Hmm.
So those are like my top favorite tarot decks. And I could always go on my Oracle rant, but
Hmm.
do you want to do your tarot decks?
No, go ahead and do your oracles too, and then I'll just kind of
Okay.
run through mine because mine are all mixed up. So,
Oh, okay. Well, so for my go-to Oracle decks currently, and this also again kind of hits with is also I hope they're tarot deck too, but Kim Kranz. I don't know if she's queer, but I may have a lesbian crush on her and her artwork and everything that she's ever made. But there is also a lot of rainbows. Like a lot of her
Hmm.
stuff tends to be, some like her tarot deck tends to be kind of black and white with rainbow with pops of color. And I just love that about her work. I love her artwork. I love her books that she writes. And I have fallen more in love with her oracle decks than I have her tarot. But her
Hmm.
tarot is, of course, a beautiful addition to my collection. And she probably has way more oracle decks than I own of hers, but I have her archetypes deck, alchemy deck, animal spirit, and the tarot.
Hmm.
I just like everything that she's done. She
Hmm.
has books that I want. I have a journal that she's created, like an art journal, where it's like all these little art prompts that you can just open it up random and do something with. It's just I just love her as an artist. I love her
Hmm.
creative stuff. So those are some of my, especially alchemy and archetypes. And alchemy is they're hexagonal,
Hmm.
six-sided cards, and the archetypes are round. So I love the way a rectangle, a circle, and a hexagon all get together and will
Oh
put
yeah.
a beautiful message together for people. So that's like Kim Cran's. It's all called the Wild Unknown,
Hmm.
everything. So the Wild Unknown Tarot, the Wild Unknown Alchemy, the Wild Unknown Archetypes, the Wild Unknown Animal Spirits. So if you want to find her stuff, look up the Wild Unknown Tarot and everything else. So again, I said I would fall in love with the creator, Laura Tempest Zackroff.
Yes.
She is somebody I have met in person
Hmm.
at conventions. I've gone to rituals that she has, created and crafted
Hmm.
and shared. She has the Liminal Spirits was her first deck. I love it.
Hmm.
Liminal, I just love the idea of liminal anything. And
Hmm.
so she just has these different kind of liminal spaces and creatures and all decks. And I know she has the Anatomy of the Witch Oracle deck
Hmm.
as well, but I have not dove into that one. But
I
her
have
her
that one.
newer deck, do you have the newest one? Because it's like
Mm-mm.
I don't personally have it, but I know two people very close to me that do, and I love it so much. It's the Sigil Witchery deck. And
I
so
want
she,
it.
one of Oh my, I want it too. I've actually like had my hands on it and I still want it so badly. But she has a Sigil Witchery book. She's also an author
Hmm.
and a performing like she's just amazing. I love her. I'm kind of fangirling a little bit, but how well, it happens. She's also one of the people that I know that has had her creations. But she creates sigils. She does sigil classes. She's written a sigil book, and then she made a sigil deck. And the sigil deck is like breaking up these different aspects of sigil, either the symbology of something you can put in as a sigil itself, or how to build a sigil, like centering things or having it
Hmm.
asymmetrical, or putting it in clusters or putting it below or above or within or without and what all that means. And she's just made it into a deck, and you can ask the deck a question and pull some cards and then build your own sigil with what you get. And figure out what the message is for the meaning of what you pulled. And I don't know, it just seems like such a cool little in-depth way of building a sigil.
Hmm.
It's so
That's
clever.
cool.
Right? Yeah, so I highly recommend that one. Prism Oracle is one of my very much constantly using go-to pairs with every deck I ever use. It's just prisms, so colors. It's all based on color. There's different meanings to the color red. It could mean love, it could mean anger, it could mean frustration, it
Hmm.
could mean, bloodline. Green, it could be Mother Nature, it could be this, it could be that, it could be envy. And so there's this deck that takes colors and puts different shades of one color of different colors. So it has all of the color spectrum of the rainbow plus black and white, and it has multiple cards of each color, multiple
Nice.
shades. And it has kind of some simple, very simple shape artwork and a
Hmm.
word, and it'll have one word. And so it's just so simple, but it gives like the most in-depth, on par flavor spice messages that pairs
Hmm.
so well with any card that I pull with it that I almost use that exclusively with any spread I do. I'll always pull like a prism card or two because it's
Wow.
just so simple and yeah, I love it.
Hmm.
It's one of my favorite decks. And it was also a birthday gift to me. So I think those are all my faves, except I do have obviously a never-ending wish list of
Hmm.
things, especially when it comes to queer tarot. So when I was looking, there was a queer tarot deck. So there's the Pride Tarot, a collective that I
Hmm.
have, but there's also a queer tarot deck that I saw, and I'm like, oh, I want that. But
Hmm.
I don't have it, so I can't really speak on the experience of it, but it's on my wish list. And I know you and another friend of mine really turned me on to the numinous
Hmm.
tarot and everything from that particular creator that I pretty much want but can't afford. And
Hmm.
one of these days I will own and support more decks of theirs. So
Yes.
that's my list. I obviously see, like, let us talk about things we love and we will not shut up.
True, 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 true. So Numinous Tarot tops my list. I learned about it through our mutual friend, and I have loved it ever since. It was probably my first queer tarot deck, and it's still, I think I got the second edition. I think it's on its fourth or fifth edition printing at this
Wow.
point. It's phenomenal. The Numinous
And
Tarot.
that creator has made more decks. So
The
they
creator
have
has made
Oracle
more
decks. They
decks.
have
I have the Numinous Tarot. They have a Numinous Oracle. They have a bunch of other things. They have a whole
the
book series
Threadbound
that's
Oracle.
phenomenal.
Yeah, right. They have books too. Like
They're
sometimes you
wonderful.
just really, yeah, you like the creator, so you like everything that they make.
Right. The next one that I did was, this is one that I kickstarted as a whim, but it became a phenomenon. And you talk about your Pride deck being the idea of collaborative. This is one of probably the first of the original ideas of collaborative, or at least it was the first time that sparked a movement of collaborative, and that's the Aliman Tarot. And
Yeah,
that deck is chaos. So if I am looking for anything chaotic magic about it, the Aliman Tarot is where I go. This deck, it's designed by a gender fluid trans ADHD neurospicy person,
was it a
and this
raccoon?
it
Are
is
they
a
a
raccoon.
raccoon?
It is three raccoons in a trench coat. This deck, but the thing is,
In the
the
alley.
creator paid all of the artists for the deck, so all of the cards that are in this deck are in other decks, and
Oh,
he's
okay.
paid and got the contributions from each deck in there, and they created their own, and it's crazy. This deck is like 115 cards.
That's right.
It is huge. It is insane.
It
There are
is.
like 9 different death cards. There are things that are all mixed and matched, and they're all over the place, and some have numbers, some don't. It's chaos. But if you need, and you're working with any sort of chaotic energy, or need that kind of chaos lens, it's my go-to. There's
Mm-hmm.
7 Dane Osman. And again, we'll put all the links to all of these cards and decks down below, so you won't have to try to remember, type them out listening to us right now. But they have
Mm-hmm.
that. They've also recently done several decks beyond that. Their most recent one that I got is the Oracle of Play. So it's an Oracle deck, similar in structure, in multiple different kinds of cards that they built. And I believe there's a Kickstarter that I just started, Hot Housewives Tarot.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
Takes its imagery built off a card called the Queen of Bombs, which is a 1950s black and white housewife on a neon pink card with her face blurred with metallic pink like nuclear missiles. So you can kind of get a feel for the imagery and how twisted
Mm-hmm.
and warped and kind of spinning things on its head for that. So that's a deck that that's in the process of being kickstarted and being produced right now. So I really like their work. It is chaotic. It is not something I can spend a lot of time with. If you want artwork, this is a deck that you want to check out. Also, beautiful artwork. Next one through is called Kickstarter was the Tarot of the Lantern Path. And
Hmm.
this is by an artist called Rudis Tabutis. I don't know their actual name. That's what they go by. You can find
I
them by
like
that
that
name on
name.
Instagram and everything else. This work is pure sapphic love. And it is soft and it is beautiful and is feminine and it is just gorgeous. So again, I don't know if the author themselves are queer. It looks like it, that they have a heavy leaning or queer friendliness through the imagery and stuff that's there, but that deck is gorgeous and beautiful. It's soft, it's feminine, and giving, if I need that energy, that's where I go. The Star Spinner Tarot, this is one I talked about once upon a time. And this is, again, it's not a deck that's built about it. It's very anime. And it's very soft and kind of fairy sweet anime. But in this deck, it comes with multiple lovers cards. So you can choose what card and what deck you want. So while the artist may not be queer themselves, they have absolutely included, if you want male male lovers card, you want male female, you want female female, they have included multiples of the different cards that are traditionally binary gendered. Another Kickstarter. Again, looking at these, going, my God, most of these are Kickstarters, but
Yeah.
but
That
this one is one I found a Kickstarter, couldn't resist. It's called the Pasta Tarot. And this is by a
your
bunch of
Italian
Italian
roots.
drag queens created this deck. And
Mm.
this is like my grandmother who I swear
love
in her
it.
heart before she passed was an Italian drag queen. It has so much of that wisdom and energy, and it is beautiful and funny and
I
fun,
love
and
it.
it's phenomenal. It's called The Pasta Tarot. It's by Rob Truglia and Jeff Petronello.
Nice.
So check that one out. Absolutely. The another one, again, I don't know if she's queer or not, but this is not actually a tarot oracle. It's kind of something slightly different. It's an affirmation deck called Positive Snark
I
by
think
Nia
she is
Patterson.
queer.
I'm pretty sure she's queer, though she doesn't have that necessarily on the bio
Uh-huh.
itself. But the Positive Snark affirmation deck, I use it all the time. It's got a lot of dirty words, got a lot of fucks, a lot of shits, a lot of all those other kinds of things, but it's
There's power in
snarky and
that.
it's powerful. It's so phenomenal. So there's that one. This one is going to be is a little silly, and I thought about leaving it off, but I think there's some magic to it. And I am a geek. Again, hello, it's right there in my bio. I have been rewatching Campaign 2 of Critical Role, which Dungeons and Dragons played by nerdy voice actors. The crew is phenomenal. I'm in love with every single human being on the planet on that panel. And their second campaign is called The Mighty Nine, and I'm in the middle of almost done rewatching it. These are campaigns that are running over the course of like 2 years. So these are long. I think there's
Hmm.
146 videos on YouTube, and each one's like 3 to 5 hours in length. These
Wow.
are long, in-depth,
Yeah.
detailed stories that connect. But I know in this campaign series, there's two characters, and one of the characters that was created by Taliesin Jaffe, who plays this character Molly Mock, is a tarot deck. And
Okay.
in the course of the series, the tarot comes out, and this is a deck that the actor who plays this character created, and
Wow.
then
For the
later,
character to
and
use.
for the character to use, and then later that character, spoiler alert, sorry, pause for the next 2 seconds if you haven't watched it, but his character initially dies, and another character picks up and takes off and starts adding to it.
Oh,
And so,
wow.
and it builds, and this deck has come up a couple of times. And there's one point in time where they do like kind of a live reading as part of a thing. And it's so eerily spot on that you're watching all the actors react, going, these are random generated numbers for the cards, and it's fitting the storyline so perfectly. It's fitting everything that you're literally watching magic happen.
That's
And
really
how,
cool.
for this idea that this is something that was just an offshoot whim, lark hobby of someone who thought this would be fun, literally be imbued with magic and come out to the other end. So the oracle itself is called Molly Mock and Jester's Oracle of the Moon deck. You can find it on the Critical Role shop website. I think it's sold out at the moment at the time of this, but it's come back a couple of times. It only comes with 20 created cards,
Oh,
but it also includes like 10 blank cards. So you can create and add to it and build your own off of it. So I've
that's
been falling in
cool.
love with that. So it's a silly one, pop culture reference. Only a few people are going to get it, but if you understand it, it's insane.
There's some
This
geek out
deck.
there that's going to be very grateful that you turned them onto that.
Yes, I hope so.
Either the show, the deck, or both.
Right. If they haven't gotten it already. Um,
Exactly.
so that's my super nerdy one. The other couple ones that I have are same thing. I'm not sure if they are queer, but they're very queer friendly. Is the Everybody's Tarot and Oracle decks by Sarah Kathleen. She's out of England. This is again a Kickstarter, but it's very simple lines, almost like the Happy People drawings with the colors
Oh, okay.
and the smileys and the smiley and kind of
Yeah.
stuff. Almost along
Simplicity.
those lines. The simplicity lines, it's really easy to read. There's no gender to it, and it's really fun. And just they have a
Oh,
tarot and they have an oracle. I've played with both. They have a bunch of other ones too. That again, prolific author. She's created several other decks that are phenomenal.
I love it.
And then another one that I picked up, it's Liminal Space. It's called Liminality Oracle from Celia
Oh,
Millisville. And it's very sketch fantasy in vibes, but again, it has that kind of very divine feminine energy connections to it. So that's one that I just got recently. It was also a Kickstarter, but it is all of these things from my Kickstarters. I think I've looked and they're available now for the most part. So you can go to the author's
right.
websites to find them. You know, might not find them on the big box, but you can go to the author's place to get them. But it's again incredibly beautiful artwork, really neat, different kind of connection to it. And the
Nice.
last one I wanted to talk about was the Awakened Soul Oracle from Ethany. And this is one that I used all the time. If you ever go back and saw any of my Twitch streams, I use this all the time. This deck was one that
Mm-hmm.
I saw at a bookstore in Portland, grabbed it, and it's been with me used ever since. And it's just so beautiful. It's so open, and the imagery is gorgeous, and it just connects to almost everyone that I pulled a card from it.
I love it.
So those are my big ones. A lot of stuff, we'll put the links in the bottom so you can see where those are at. If
And I
anything
know
sounds intriguing.
And I know this episode's getting pretty long with all of our download favorite decks and stuff, but before we wrap it up, can we talk a little bit about spreads,
Hmm.
tarot spreads, or
Absolutely.
oracle spreads? First of all, what are spreads? Orientation on how you lay out the cards can
Hmm.
have meaning as well as the cards themselves can
Yes.
have meaning, or the question you assign to the cards. Now, sometimes somebody will have a specific question and I'll just pull cards based on that question. But other times we can have a themed reading, an overall check-in, and we want to touch on several themes. You
Hmm.
can choose a spread.
Yeah, most decks that come with a book will give you some sort of spreads in there, some that are generic and some that are based to that deck, which is nice. You can
Yep.
also, there's some very basic ones that are traditional. There's the Celtic Cross, which is a 10 card
Yes.
spread, a three
Yep.
card or a 5 card spread.
Three card spreads often could be like past, present, and future.
Future. Hmm.
I mean, there's other things you can assign those to, but that's really
Generally past, present,
one of
future
the
is what.
really go-to ones is, yeah. And again, it's about orientation, right? So it's
Hmm.
we as English speakers read left to right. So in the left is the past, in the center is the present, and in the right is the future.
Hmm.
And you can kind of set things in a particular order or in a particular space when you're creating spreads based on things like that.
Hmm.
Another one we could do above, below, and center,
Hmm.
or you could do all of those past, present, future, above, below, center. That's
Hmm.
kind of somewhat the Celtic cross kind of covers a little bit.
Right. Culture Cross is in depth. It goes into a whole bunch of like past, what happened past, why it was related. It's a very specific, very traditional spread. And
Right.
but there's so many you can just go online, and I used to find so many cool spreads just come across my Instagram or my old Facebook feed that are tuned to holidays. So tuned to areas, times of the wheel, different aspects
Hmm.
of holidays or love,
Astrology or
astrology,
moon phases.
so many different things. A Tree of Life one. There's so many different things that are out there that you can absolutely create your own spreads. Like I
Oh,
said,
absolutely. I've
mentioned earlier.
collaborated with my friend Ariana. We've made spreads for specific things.
Hmm.
Like the full moon is in Libra, so we need to make a full moon in Libra spread.
Hmm.
And then we would sell, readings during that phase with that spread
Hmm.
with a particular price.
Right. And I mentioned earlier in this episode my deck interview spread. So I have a
Right.
symbol of 5 questions that I ask each new deck as I get them, and that plays out and lays out into a spread. Also, oftentimes when I'm reading, I tend to read generic. If you ask me for a general reading, I'll generally do an elemental spread. So I'll pull a guidance card with an oracle, and then I'll read through the lens of the elements. So earth, air, fire, water, spirit. So
Nice.
creativity, love, communication, thoughts, all that kind of stuff through the
One of
through the lens
my
of the elements.
One of my favorite spreads is people want like a romance or relationship reading is there's a spread that it's basically a triangle that
Hmm.
builds up, but you have the two separate cards that represent the two different people,
Hmm.
and then branching off from your own personal card and the other person in this relationship card, again through your lens, because we talked about
Hmm.
what that with the consent thing, but the next cards will be your own individual lessons.
Hmm.
Like this is what they're learning from this relationship. This is what you're learning from this relationship. And then in the center at the top of the pyramid is the union. It's
Hmm.
called the alchemical union spread because it's from the unknown alchemy deck. But
Hmm.
I will use that spread even without that deck with other
Hmm.
decks, or we'll build multiple cards into the spread. But I really love the idea of like, a card for each person, a lesson for each person, and then what you do, what your union looks like, because I
Hmm.
think people need to be individuals, but we
Hmm.
also need to be in community or
Right.
in connection with people. So, yeah, sometimes you'll find certain spreads that you gravitate towards, or you could just completely make up your own spread depending on, again, I will have somebody come to me with an overall, like, I need to know about my housing situation. Here's what's going on, and here's the, 3 or 4 questions I want to kind of get some clarity on. And then I'll build a spread, putting things in particular places like, this is what you learned from where you're at now, and this is what you need to look for and where you're going. And if it doesn't have this, then it's not right for you. Like, how do you tell that they found the right place to go? Or, and that's just for one example. You can build your own spreads depending on what the client is asking.
Mm-hmm. And the how you lay the cards down is completely up to you. You can lay them all in a row. If I'm building my own spread, you can do in a circle. If you've got something that's like kind of more directed towards something, so like housing, you can lay them down in an order of a house, in the shape of a house, or in the shape of a tree, or something else that has that kind of simple symbology that you can do. Yeah. Also helps just really reinforce the theme of the idea of the spread.
And it's really interesting when you do have a spread down to look how the cards interact with each other, how one picture, it looks like this thing on this picture is floating towards, and how there's all this color on one side and all this black and white on the other side. And it's really interesting. Spreads are cool to look at from the macrocosm, the big picture kind, where you're looking at them all together and see how they all interact with each other. That's kind of a benefit to spreads. Do you need to have spreads? No. Sometimes I will pull a card or a few cards per question, and you just get the cards. But sometimes I'll build a spread for people. It just depends on the time and effort and questions and energy and situation.
And sometimes I'll build a spread literally as I'm asking the question. It's like, I know I have these 3 questions I need to ask. Here's this card comes down, and I'll look at it and going, okay, and that card will trigger my next question that I have to ask, which will then throw the next card down. So it's really personalized, but it's also really easy, and there's such a wealth of resources out there.
Oh yeah, you can Google image search, Instagram search for tarot spreads on particular topics, like go hog wild, be inspired to pull cards by finding a cool spread to pull.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, do you think we have gotten as deep as we can go down this rabbit hole of cards, cartomancy, oracle, spreads, tarot decks?
I think we've gone down as far as we can for the moment.
You're like, we need to shut up now.
We need to pause. We need to let our poor listeners who've been dealing with us talking about tarot and oracle for the last 3 months.
Yeah.
Give them a break on some of this. But thank you if you have been hanging in listening to. We really appreciate you and everything else. And again, hopefully you got some good information out of all of this. But we will take a breather, I promise, for the next episode and the next coming up, that you won't have to hear us. I can't promise you mention tarot or oracle, but I can promise you we won't deep dive back into them to give you guys a bit of a breather.
Yeah, we've definitely. And then hopefully maybe we find some listeners that connect with us because they too have a hyperfixation and or deep passion or focus on this kind of fun and mystical knowledge and metaphysical interactions with our magic and our witchcraft.
Yes.
So with all of that said, I just want to say thank you so much for listening to the Queer Witch Tarot. Well, maybe one of these days we can aspire. Thank you for listening to the Queer Witch Project. If you like what you heard, if you love our topics, let us know. Give us some feedback. Leave us some comments and give us those 5 stars, subscription, thumbs up, whatever the platform you're listening to us on lets you do, because we love hearing from you and we love interacting with you.
Absolutely. And if there's a topic you would like to know more about or an episode topic you'd like to suggest, contact us at thequeerwitchproject@gmail.com or find us on YouTube, TikTok, and Instagram with the handle @queerwitchproject. We upload every other week. And remember, queerness is a key to magic.
Be yourself and love rebelliously.